Tilde, let's have a little chat today about a place called Notting Hill, and something which I just found so very hilarious when I saw it, given the area's history. So Notting Hill is an area in London, fairly central and a little bit to the west. And its history over the last 60 or 70 years has been incredibly varied. Back in the 1800s, it was an area largely of industry, and was an area which featured a lot of pottery kilns, since the area is very rich in clay, as is most of London. It also had a lot of piggeries, which were situated there very much for the same reason actually. Pigs love to wallow in clay. So it was quite a poor area, very working class, and frankly none too pleasant to live in, since it featured a large open-air slurry pit which was so large it was given the nickname the Ocean. This would, several decades later, become the area now known as Avondale Park. And all of this was part of a general clean-up of an area known as the Potteries and Piggeries. Not the most imaginative of names, but completely accurate at the time. During the mid to late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a lot of construction work done in the area, turning it into what it is today. An area with hundreds of big, beautiful townhouses, and all manners of shops. In the 1930s and 40s, as a result of the events of World War II, the area became a little bit different. The large, beautiful townhouses were often divided up into several series of flats. Property racketeering, prostitution, and violent crime became the norm. This change coincided with the post-war demographic change of the area. The 1940s and 50s saw a massive boom in the black population of the area, as well as several other minority ethnic groups. This massive demographic shift, high rates of poverty and general misery in the area, led to a lot of tension between the newly immigrated families and the local white population, culminating in the now infamous 1958 Notting Hill race riots, an event sparked by Madge Britt Morrison, a white Swedish woman, and her Jamaican husband Raymond Morrison, when they were confronted and attacked by a local gang. The ensuing troubles and general rioting that followed lasted from the 29th of August through to the 5th of September. And now, every year, as a result of those ethnic troubles, we now have something known as the Notting Hill Carnival, which is basically a giant Caribbean street festival. And every year, without fail, at this carnival, there is always some sort of attack. Sometimes fatal, there are always multiple assaults every year, businesses and homes attacked and destroyed, and this year's Notting Hill Carnival saw its first ever acid attack, demonstrating that Notting Hill still is an area that likes to frequently change itself and stay right up to date with things. Now, why would I find any of this amusing? Well, this isn't the part which I find funny. Because you see, we're not fully done with the history of Notting Hill. In the 1980s, the area took another turn. The interest in single-occupation houses began to return. Large townhouses, which were previously subdivided into multiple tenant abodes, were reverted back into single-family, very large houses. The area began to become very trendy, and the 90s and early 2000s saw the area change remarkably. Many of these small boutique shops were replaced with large multinational standardized chain stores. The area had become gentrified. And because of its previous ethnic leanings and outdoor market areas, the area became very popular with lots of white, upper-middle-class, progressive hipster types, as well as what is known here as champagne socialists. The sorts of people who talk a very big game about socialism and the plight of the factory worker, yet are all university educated and have never even seen a factory, let alone work in one. So, as a result of this general change in the area, specifically the pricing of everything in the area, you've got an interesting social divide, largely between poorer black communities and richer white communities. And that is part of what I find so amusing about this situation. So you've got a mixed population in this area, generally divided along the black, poor, white, rich line. Obviously, it's not a perfect divide, there are of course exceptions, but generally that is the case. And every year, without fail, this Notting Hill Carnival goes goes ahead. And what is the reaction of the champagne socialist side of this equation? The people who like to talk the talk about multiculturalism. The sorts of people who will call you a racist if you express any interest in things like controlled immigration. Well, their response is of course to board up all of their stuff in advance. And this is such common practice that a local business by the name of Crystal Glass will offer you a 20% discount on any boarding up job done before the Notting Hill Carnival. And that's what I find so funny, because it seems like this is the only situation where this could possibly happen. Notting Hill, and also the borough that it's in, which is the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, has quite a wealth disparity gap. It's an area where massive tower blocks full of the lower classes rub shoulders with mansions owned by some of the richest people in the country. If you'd like an example of how poor some of the poor people are in that area, look no further than the Grenfell Tower disaster, an incident which happened back in June 2017, where the entire tower block was ravaged with fire, killing at least 80 people. The entire situation is just a very interesting quirk of the area. The poor, who are largely on the left because they rely on government handouts and welfare to live, the champagne socialists who like to speak for them and use them as ammunition to push their own agendas, but when it comes to those upper middle progressive hipster types actually having to meet the people that they champion all day every day, well, we need to get some walls and some gates around all of our stuff. 'Cause diversity is our strength, but we just don't want it anywhere near us. And by far my favourite image of this property defence has to be this one, where they've spray painted all of the boarding protecting their nice big fancy house with slogans which will appeal to the politically left progressive types. Donald Trump has bad hair. Wanna hear a racist joke? Nigel Farage. They are literally virtue signalling on their home defences. Don't come and break into my house and wreck my stuff, 'cause I'm on your side. How do you do, fellow poor leftists? I'm fighting the good fight too, don't you know? I'm on the right side of history, just like all of you people who I really don't want on my property, so take a step back please, Kay, thanks. This is the thing which I just found absolutely hilarious. Bring on the diversity as long as I don't have to live with it. And if that diversity happens to get too close for a couple of days a year, I'm just gonna board up all of my stuff, just wall it off from the outside world until all of that cultural enrichment just goes away back to where it came from.